When you are get to a place of desperation like that, and to where I am absolutely unwavering and I will not compromise. Like I am going to wrestle with you until you bless me. I am not letting go. Like getting to that place, God starts speaking.
Welcome back to The Uncomfortable Truth. We've got two special guests today. These guys are super special. I love both of them. One of them is my neighbor and the youth minister at our church.
Ooh.
And you've been on the show before.
I have.
Okay.
I have. It's been a blessing.
We had
good.
there was a little bit of controversy
Little pop.
with one of the TikToks.
Well, it's one of those things. I would encourage everybody listen
to the whole show. Go to YouTube.
That would mean they would have to be an informed viewer or listener.
Here's
I don't think they want to do that. I think they just want to watch like a 30-second clip and then leave their opinion.
I think that's where our attention spans are nowadays. Zach, you've been on the show this is probably your 9th or 10th time.
I've been on several times, but it's been a while. I haven't been on in probably over a year.
It's been a while. So Zach, you are the most, Zach Vaught, everybody. Zach Vaught. If you want to go back, he's been on some other shows. You've been on the most shows as a guest.
Ooh.
Oh, nice!
You're
Gold
almost
star.
You're almost like a glorified co-host now.
Something like that.
So we're excited to have both these guys. Both of these guys are involved in church. Zach, I want to ask you a question.
Okay. All right.
How are you?
I'm okay. How you doing?
No, it's not about me. It's not about me. No, I mean that's the church answer, right?
Yeah.
That's what we say when we're at church when people ask us that.
Yeah.
How are you? How is it with your soul? Are you okay?
Great question. Yeah. So we'll dive right in.
Let's go.
Let's go.
That was the point.
I was about to say, be careful.
Jump off the rock 40 foot
Dang.
above.
I'm glad that we have a good relationship because you just asked me to marry you the second we started the podcast.
That's right. That's how I roll.
Verbally speaking. So
that's how I roll.
No, man, I am great. Coming out of a season where I was blind to some things that the Lord was saying, some things that the Lord was doing. For those of you that don't know, I am a pastor at my church. I've been on staff now for almost 7 years, and I've had seasons over that 7 years where I am walking really closely with the Lord. I'm hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit. I'm walking in obedience. I'm doing great. I've also had a lot of bad seasons where I'm like, man, I'm frustrated with people. I'm seeing my love tank is not very full. People are this ministry thing would be okay if it wasn't for all these people.
I mean, for real.
Dude, can we do it without them?
Can we get rid of the flock? It's really easy to shepherd when you're not.
That would be ideal in a perfect world. Sometimes
this is real talk with real ministers. We're gonna get past this moment, so don't feel like you're hated if you're part of a church.
We love you.
You are not. You are not.
Sure.
You're loved.
And so, so I got to break away on a sabbatical during the month of July this year. And so over the last several years, I've had my hands in multiple things. Me and you have connected from an entrepreneurial standpoint. I grew and sold a woodworking business. I do some coaching consulting. We've got Airbnb properties. And I've done all that while being on staff at the church.
Full-time church?
Yeah, full-time on staff at the church. And I have always kind of had this, just watch what I'll do type of mentality about stuff.
What do you mean by that?
Instead of actually trying to gauge the health of my spirit and the health of my soul, half the time I'm consuming stuff from the Lord, scripture, encouragement, messages, worship, and the other half the time I'm listening to these entrepreneur bros online telling me that you're not doing enough, you need to get on your grind, that there is no balance. And so I've been this conglomerate of these two mentalities for a while.
Those two ideas pull at each other, right?
Yes. And I've felt that tension for a long time. But also, I've had a kind of somewhat of an undying belief in myself, too. If there's anybody in the world that can do this, I think I can do it, which is super arrogant. I'm realizing that now. I got a family, got a wife, got several kids. And but what had happened was that and I'm sure I've told you this before, the church was this steady, consistent thing in my life. And without entrepreneurship, I felt like there was nothing exciting happening. entrepreneurship was the lever that I could pull at any point in time to do something new or implement something.
Be creative, stay engaged.
Right. And, and I also grew up super poor. So there's kind of been this drive in me that like, I don't want my kids to grow up super poor.
Do you know that, just side note here, do you know that like most of the billionaires in America grew up super poor?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have something to look back on and say, I don't ever want to do that again.
Yeah, I'm not going back to that.
To get to that level, you have to have some type of just sick, nasty drive, because most people hit like a level and then they're chasing the security. And so that once they get reasonable security, they back off. But people that have like pain or trauma associated with something, they never back off.
Do you feel like that was you?
No.
Before this eye-opening experience?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I wasn't like living in a trash bag poor, but I lived in a itty bitty little house in a 596 person town. Nobody had a college education. There was not much hope in that place, So for me, I got out of there, got a degree, moved to Longview, got married, and started seeing what was possible from a making money perspective. Making money perspective. But I also knew that God had a call in my life and that I didn't want to just chase money. Like I knew, like
when did you know that God had a call on your life? How old were you?
17.
Okay.
So I went to church, grew up with my mom. My dad never went. I had a brother that passed away when I was young. He was 7, I was 5. He passed away. My dad didn't want anything to do with the church. My mom was like a moth to the flame to the church.
Okay.
Oh.
And so I went to church with mom all the time, but it didn't mean anything until I really had my own encounter with God. You can't live forever off somebody else's relationship with the Lord.
Right.
Say it again.
You can't live forever off of somebody else's relationship with the Lord. Your parents, your wives, your husbands.
Church on Sunday.
Yep.
It's not enough.
You're living through the adventures of your pastor.
Right.
The spiritual adventures of your pastor.
And you hope he's got a good word.
And if he don't hit a home run, now I'm angry.
And I'm not being fed. But we're not going to get into that. Oh, we're not going to get into that.
Oh, man, we can go in there. We go there next episode. I'm writing stuff down over here. You can't say that one more time. You can't
live off of your pastor's adventures.
Okay.
Only live off your pastor's adventure. That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
All right.
But anyway, I could drag this out the entire episode. But long story short was that I'd somewhat been a double-minded man, to be quite honest.
That was going to be my question was, how can two truths like that be true? That God is in his sovereignty and his plan has given you actually a little bit of a drive for making money.
Right.
And having that, or even how would I get that? But then also he's giving you this calling of shepherding his flock.
Yeah.
In which he's like, don't take a staff, don't take a tunic, don't even, I mean, just go with where you are and don't even ask for money. Like, I'll take care of you.
Right.
So it's like, how can those two true things be true?
I think that's where we develop your truth, my truth, instead of his truth. That's how we justify the way that we live today.
Yeah. And so that was where I was. And what had happened ultimately was that my heart just got sour. I don't think I was walking around like just angry or mad all the time, but what I found was that people were no longer the goal. People were the obstacle to achieve what I was trying to achieve and get where I was trying to go.
Yeah.
And what happened too is that the more successful I got, the bigger this chasm became between me and just everyday normal people that God has called me to lead and love on. So yeah, I mean, by the time that sabbatical rolled around in July, like, this year, like, I hit some really great financial milestones and was feeling real big and pumped up, and nobody knew. I'm not real public about that kind of stuff, but in July I went on sabbatical, and just the Lord started speaking to me and started challenging me on some stuff, and there was some transition coming with my role at the church. I wasn't coming off staff or anything like that, but there was some roles that I was stepping down from, some that I was stepping into fully. And my last week of sabbatical, I've already talked to you about this, but I lost more money in one tragic event than I've ever lost in my entire life.
Over a period of a couple hours.
Yes. Through an investment that went bad. And when I say it was a lot of money, dude, it was a lot.
I'll be the testament to that. He's told me the number. It
was
would be a lot for anybody.
Yeah, it was a painful amount of money. You know, it didn't like financially ruin me, but it was like, oh my gosh, this hurts. And all this security that I was chasing and all this that I'm building my life on, which I'm not, and again, I wasn't fully building my life on it, but it was a huge driving factor.
How did that make you feel in those few hours where that balance went from this to zero?
Really weird. Obviously, part of me was sick to see you lose that much money, and it's something that you've worked really hard for to get to. Like, you just think about all the blood, sweat, and tears it took to get that, to put it in this investment vehicle that goes south, right? But then on the other side of that, the Lord really spoke to me in it, and there was almost a relief. Like, I saw it hit zero. The Lord was like, that's the thing that you've been trying to build on, and that's how strong and steady it is.
Ooh.
And I was either going to just cry and throw up, or I was going to be like, okay, God, what are you teaching me? So I pulled my notes out, and I just literally started like, okay, what am I feeling? What am I learning? What am I experiencing in this moment?
What was that turnaround time frame like of feeling sick and upset to...
Oh, I felt sick and upset for a long time.
Okay.
And so, but I just...
It's like, I don't know if that feeling ever goes away.
Yeah.
But because there's this hope, and that's the, I feel like one thing I would say is, like, if you didn't have Christ,
Oh, dude.
there's no telling what the reaction would have been.
Right.
You know, it wouldn't have been kicking and screaming. It would have been a whole other level.
Yeah.
But to actually have mercy and grace and patience, and also, aren't we thankful God's not petty?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
He's like, oh, hey, take that. You know,
Right.
but He went, I'm going to take this, but I am closer than I've always been this close, but I'm going to make you feel how close I am right now. And to have that patience to be able to go, okay, hey, but let me speak to you when all the rubble's down, the dust is settled, and now it's quiet. I'm hearing that still voice, and like, where are you at?
Not only that, but like a step further is that you saw that number go down and felt the way that you felt, but then how did your wife deal with that as well?
I haven't had very many instances where my wife's put trust in me and I've like completely let her down. This was one. Like, I think we've all had them.
Oh, yes, we have.
I think we've all had them. But,
You have?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God.
So, but that was one of those moments where I'm like, I have to be honest with her. I can't lie to her and tell her that everything's hunky dory, you know? So like that conversation of like, hey, we just lost a lot of money. And she was obviously upset, but like, had it been us like 6 or 8 years ago, we would have had a huge blowout fight.
What's changed?
We've grown in the Lord. We've learned how to communicate with each other and love each other. And what's cool about it is we couldn't see it then, but that was the beginning of the Lord breaking something off of me. Had that not happened, so that was the last week of sabbatical. I come back from sabbatical and my pastors kind of give me like this, hey, here's the plan. You know, we're going to move you back into these positions. This is what we talked about before you left. We're good with that. We want to move you back into that, but we want to challenge you too. If we do that, we want you to become way more pastoral. And I had like, on sabbatical, we filled out like a survey. Like, what gives you life? What drains you? What sucks the life out of you? And I literally put like, people and being in leadership drains me. Like, I was just being honest.
Yeah.
I'm like, being around people, small talk, trying to meet people in the lobby every Sunday, like trying to go up and shake new people's hands. Like, I'm kind of an introverted person by nature. And if I'm not walking by the Spirit, it absolutely sucks the life out of me.
Was this a people problem, or was this a
This is a Zach problem?
problem?
This is a Zach problem. Yes, but I would have not told you. I was convinced that is not the way that God made me. I'm naturally more introverted. My argument was always, well, what about the people that are here? They need to be pastored. I need to be connecting with them. All the people that I don't get to see all throughout the week, I need to connect with them. But we have people that their gift mix is to be extroverted, go meet new people. Let's let them do that, and let me go over. Let me pastor the people that I know. Right? That was kind of my argument, but. I come back from sabbatical. They say, hey, if you're going to stay in this role, we need you to be more pastoral. And I'm like, okay. Well, at that point, when they said that, that felt heavy to me. I'm like, I don't know that I want to do that. Then they said, or you can have this online director role. So I see online and creative ministries at my church. They're like, you can have this online director role. You're no longer a pastor. You get us some data. You make sure that we're maximized online to reach people online, and you don't have to be at the church. You can do your own thing. And I still have other things going that provide for my family. So I'm like, I get all my time back. This is where I'm going. I'm like, I could literally play golf every day. Yeah, I could
Please golf.
I could play golf every day. I could hang out with my wife and kids. I could sleep in. I could, you know, like your mind just goes nuts. Like what would I do with 40 hours a week back, you know? So I go home and for lunch that day to tell my wife, and she's like, and I'm kind of excited about this idea of maybe like stepping out of this pastoral role and maybe being like an online director, right? I tell my wife and she's like, no. She's like, you are a pastor. And I'm like, then why does it feel so hard? Like, why do I not like doing it sometimes? You know, which I don't think there's a job out there that you're going to love doing all the time, but
There's not.
Yeah, there's not. But right after that, I got to go on a trip with my senior pastor, my senior leader, and I had a really hard conversation with him. My thing is I like feedback. I want you to give me feedback. Hey, how am I doing? What am I not seeing? What are you seeing? Hey, where do you want me to step up at? How can I be a better leader? I like that. And when I'm asking people for feedback that I've given authority in my life and they're not giving me feedback, it bugs crap out of me.
Yeah.
So I literally just had a conversation with him because I'd been asking my senior leader for feedback for a long time. And it's just me and my wife and him and his wife. And we're sitting in Lake Tahoe, California, because we have a church plant out there in Rocklin, California. But we're sitting there for breakfast one morning. I said, okay.
Beautiful area, by the way.
Oh, incredible.
Like perfect time to hear some real truth, right?
Yeah. And so I'm sitting.
Just lay it on you.
Let's pull the mud out.
Yeah. But I just basically force him into a difficult conversation. And I'm like, why will you not give me feedback? Is it because you think that I'm just going to do whatever I'm going to do and it doesn't matter what you say? And he goes, yeah. Yeah, I think ultimately Zach's going to do what Zach wants to do.
That's what he said.
Mm-hmm. But then he used an example. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. Recently, I told you this. This is what you did. This is not what I asked you to do. Well, I had done exactly what I thought he told me to do. So I was trying to be obedient and submitted to him, but there was a miscommunication. Well, Taylor took that like, my wife, Taylor, she's like, oh, well, that was just miscommunication. I took that like, how many other times has he told me something that I thought I was doing the right thing, but I wasn't, but he wasn't giving me feedback or correcting me on it. So I was super frustrated. So by the time we came back from the trip, I sat down with my executive pastor and I said, hey, I got to be real with you. If I'm going to stay in a pastoral role, I got to have some clear lanes. I want to know what you guys want. And they just kind of kept hitting me with, it's not about doing what we want. It's about your heart being right. I was in, just tell me what to do and I'll execute the play.
You're like, ABC, help me fix it.
I was in that mode.
Yeah.
And so it just aggravated me to death. But it drove me to this point where I'm like, I have to fast and pray. I cannot just pick eeny, meeny, miny, mo on this pastoral position or this director position where I'm getting all my free time back and all these things. I have to fast and pray. And I haven't had very many times in my life where I really internally felt like I'm going to wrestle with you until you bless me. And that's where I got to about 3 weeks ago. I was like, Lord, I will literally fast. I don't care how long it takes. Mm-hmm. I am not making a decision until you clearly speak and you clearly open doors and shut doors and remind me of exactly what you want me to do.
Yes.
And so that's where I got.
That reminds me of your story about yelling at God.
Like
your buddy of yours said, have you yelled at God yet? Like be real.
Yeah.
Have real. And growth takes real conversations. It takes the beginning conversations of what you're having with your pastors, real men having real talk, being real with each other. And then real talk with God too. I mean, this is like,
because
I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Help me.
I heard it one way was, yelling is not going to bring you growth, but it's the access to growth sometimes. It's not always that we yell vocally, but it's just the yelling or throwing everything else that's been just getting infested and nasty that we've let it sit inside and it's not come out.
Maybe it's yelling with God.
Yeah, and so until we get those things out, then it gets real quiet. We're huffing. We're finally like, okay, everything's out of my heart and everything's out of my brain. Everything's out of my feelings. And he goes, like, are you done now? Because now you're ready to grow.
You're exhausted of yourself.
To where now I can actually speak to you, to your heart and not to the doing.
Yes.
Because here's the deal. You're freeing so many pastors. Like if you know someone who's a pastor that has been a pastor for...
Yeah, send
them this story, because there's so many of us that feel that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do the right thing, but then ultimately the Lord's like, oh, no, I just want your heart.
Yeah.
Like that is a profound statement of I might not be in the right lane of doing the to-do list, but is my heart set in a place where I actually can be on his to-do list?
Right.
Like that's really sticking good, man.
That's kind of where I came to. And in that, when you are get to a place of desperation like that, and to where I am absolutely unwavering and I will not compromise. Like I am going to wrestle with you until you bless me. I am not letting go. Like getting to that place, God starts speaking, and he starts I love the conviction of the Holy Spirit. It's one of the greatest gifts that God could ever give us, because it's just gentle and it just shines a light on like these little pockets inside of your heart that are broken. And God just started to just convict me and show me, like, you have been performance minded in all your ways, with your relationships, with running and executing a student service, with the people that you're leading, with all these things, and none of that's how I treat you. None of that's how I don't put you in that box. And why are you doing it to yourself, and why are you doing it to everybody else? And what happens is, when as a leader or a pastor, you see people based on what they do or what they can do, and the fact that they're not living up to their potential, or the fact that they're letting you down, or they're not getting things marked off the list, it turns a heart of flesh into a heart of stone. And that's why people felt so heavy. That's why pastoring felt so heavy, because I was seeing people, they're there to help me accomplish this big vision that God's put inside my heart. And my senior leader gave me something that I'm gonna share, but it absolutely just wrecked me. And it was, what if God didn't give you the people around you to help you accomplish the vision that he put in your heart? But what if instead God gave you the vision to unite the people to you so that you could love them? Let's say you're a pastor out there, you're trying to grow a church, you're trying to reach the lost. That's the vision. Like, okay, God, you've given me this heart to accomplish these things. And so I'm bringing other team members, I'm bringing other volunteers, I'm bringing the people around me to go get this thing, accomplish this thing. What if we look at Jesus and the disciples? Obviously, Jesus's goal was to establish the church, was to come and die for all mankind. That was the goal. But we see that he used the goal to unite the disciples. He used the goal to bring the disciples close. He used the goal to establish relationship with the people. He was never above the relationship. And what I see too much of now, especially on a mega church level or on an influencer level, is that the goal is bigger than the people. The goal and the mission is bigger than the people. And you've heard this 1,000 times. Like, get on the bus or get run over. And I think in some instances, you can't sacrifice an entire vision for a disgruntled person. I don't think you can do that. But what happened these last couple of weeks is that God just totally took the veil off my face of the way that I saw people and the way that I was called to love and lead people. That's really kind of where I'm at. That's how I'm doing.
As you're telling your story, I'm thinking I've run a service business since I was old enough to drive, pulling a lawnmower behind a truck. And I've dealt with people that entire time. And I've become jaded towards people. Yeah. I mean, you could spin it as customers.
And they hurt you.
Right. People hurt you. Mm-hmm. People do. People are imperfect. I'm imperfect.
Yep.
But the devil wants to take that and keep me jaded towards people so that I can't recognize people, so that I can't love them with God's love. And God's over here saying, no, man, like, these people are in your life for a reason.
And business did that to me too.
That's where I would say Satan saw that opportunity of the consumerism of a business and the consumerism now that of the church. Ooh, I can blend those two.
Like the value of a person, a client, the value of a person should be the same. We should have this view.
Because what's hard is we expect that within a business. We expect that with a
Right.
consumer of like 5-star, 2-star, but we are starting to see that more in the church. Of hey, pastor, that was a 3-star message there, and here are the things that I need you to do more of, so that I can actually be a satisfied
Customer.
You said it, not me. The idea that we as men can always clearly separate that is foolishness.
How many times, I don't know if you guys as pastors, if people say this to you, but like I've heard it a bunch as a congregation member. I didn't get much out of that service today.
You hear that a lot. You hear that.
What'd you put into it? I mean, like, where was your heart at?
Actually, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay for a pastor to hit a single. But are you actually swinging at home? Because if I am not eating all week, and then all of a sudden I show up to Sunday service, you better have a buffet, and it better be a daggum home run.
Yeah, like every Sunday's fifth Sunday. That's Baptist talk right there.
And when you don't eat throughout the week, you're what? Hangry. Right. You're angry. You're short. You're quick. You're critical. And so all of a sudden, the music's not to a certain way. The lights aren't. They got in my eyes. And it's really not because it was bad. It was because
your lens is broken.
And you're sensitive. You haven't had the manna. You haven't had the bread of life. You have not went every morning, got what you needed, and left what was there. What we do on Sunday is we see all this manna, and we better not only fill our satisfied self, but
it better be so good that I can fill my pockets.
Yes, I better fill my basket.
Yeah.
And so I need to have so many stinking notes, and if I don't, how am I going to survive the rest of the week?
So you're telling me to take plastic bags to church and stuff them in my pocket so that
Walmart
cheeseburger Eddie.
Yeah,
that's the
right.
reason for the Walmart bags under the sink.
That's right. Yeah.
No, I'm just to riff on that for a second, and if I can be completely uncomfortably true here.
That's what we're here for, man.
Even as a pastor, there have been times that I look up and I've gone days and I haven't connected to the presence of God. What happens is when you do that, you put a dependency on other people to feed you, and you put a dependency on the church to feed you, and you put a dependency. And what it boils down to is a lack of discipline, but it doesn't start with discipline. It starts with love. It starts with love for the Lord and a desire to know Him. And so it's so easy to start talking about you need to be more disciplined, you need to get more structured, you need to do all these things, but that is not where it starts. It starts with a desire to know Him. And when you desire to know Him, everything else flows out of that. Everything flows out of it, because when you do it as a performance, and I got to do this so I can keep my Bible app streak alive, or I can do this or do that, you're looking through the wrong lens. You're looking at it in a sense that I'm trying to please God with this. I'm trying to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, so I'm a good person, so I'm a good Christian. Like, all those lenses are freaking broken, dude.
What would you say to somebody that says that I want to have a desire, I want to be disciplined in those things, but I don't? What's your first step? Like, I want to love God, but I just hadn't felt it. Don't feel it. Like, what would you say to that person?
That's a tricky place to be, and I think we all have been there, and I'm sure we'll all be back there again.
Yeah.
But I think that the Lord will use your life to shake you out of a lull, and that's what He did for me.
Your circumstances.
Yeah. There's something I heard recently that was super powerful, and it was the lead singer of 10th Avenue North. We're talking
Tim Donahue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike. Is it Tim or
Mike?
Mike Donahue.
He's got some good stuff.
But he was talking about the verse, without faith, it's impossible to please God. And he said, isn't it a bummer that without faith, it's impossible to please God? That's kind of how he starts his talk about it.
He's always so like, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. Isn't it a bummer that without faith, it's impossible to please God? Well, then he goes into, like, what does that actually mean? And he says, so what is faith? Faith is not having all the answers. So he's like, let's replace the word faith with some different phrasing. If I have all the answers, it's impossible to please God.
Oh.
If I have all the answers, it's impossible to please God. I was like, oh my gosh, that just shook me. And what we do in American life is we try to build lives where we have all the answers. We try to build lives where I don't need.
It's hurting.
I don't need God to provide for me financially.
Yeah, you don't need Him.
I don't need God to provide for me spiritually. I don't need God to provide for me relationally, emotionally, physically. We build these lives where we are, especially in entrepreneur bro world, you are the source. I am my own source. Therefore, if I have all the answers, it's impossible to please God. And that just shook me to the core and challenged the crap out of me. And
when we don't have the answers, man, and you're sitting there going, man, I'm foolish, or I'm not prepared enough, or I'm not disciplined enough, or I'm not far enough down the track, or I don't have enough things on my resume, regardless of where that's at. But even just as a follower of Christ, like, well, I'm just not enough. And that's when he's like, exactly, but it's so hard to believe that.
Yeah. And to also get to that place where you say, I'm not enough, but you to also not hear the condemning voice of the enemy, where he makes you feel like a piece of crap because you're not enough, but hear the voice of the Lord that says, yeah, that's why I came. That's why the cross exists. If you were enough, I died for nothing.
Yeah. It's in a weird way. Like Andrew kind of talked about this last Sunday, was just like, you actually need to come to a term where you agree with the lie.
I thought that was good. Devil tells us you're not enough. You can't do enough. You'll never do enough. You'll never be enough.
And it's like, flip the table. Go, yeah, actually I'm not.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm so glad that he was.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, unless you know him,
yeah,
and unless also, and this is another thing, it's like, not only we're really good at getting to know him, but does he know you? And at the end of the day, it's like, I know him, and he knows my inner heart and my inner depth, where he's actually like, oh, no, you did prophesy in my name. You did all these miracles, and I knew you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than I didn't know you. To where we actually allow ourselves to go, oh yeah, I am not enough because I told him I'm not enough. Right. Like when's the last time as a believer and just as a man that you've actually got on your knees and said, Lord, this is who I am? And he goes, yeah, and that's why. And like, that's why I love you. And that's why I actually like showed my love for you by my son beyond the cross. Yeah. And so it's like, it's not just so much that we know him and that you need to be in this Bible 365 days out of the year, but we actually need to know him so that we actually know how to let him know us more.
So I was going to say, when you said we were really good at getting to know him, but letting him knowing us is different. It's letting him know us. He knows us.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows us. It's like the veil. The veil is like, I had this picture of what my relationship with Jesus was supposed to look like. Right. Or I had these blinders on of what I was going to make this relationship look like. And now it's like, whew, there's no limit. The only limit is the limit that I put on this relationship with God. Let's end there and then start a new one. Hey, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you being here. Hit those buttons at the bottom. Help us reach more people for Jesus. Go kick the day in the face, and we'll catch you on the next one.